Henry Oscar Dettman was born October 5, 1883 in Kroppelshagen, Lauenburg, Germany, the son of Johann Dettman and Dorothea Fries. Not much is known about Henry Dettman's childhood years, but early in his youth he had learned to play the harmonica. His father, Johann Dettman, died on April 17, 1890, as a result of committing suicide. A few years later, shortly after his 10th birthday, on October 15, 1893, he, along with his mother, Dorothea, his brother, Ernest, and sisters, Friederike and Caroline, emigrated from Hamburg, Germany, aboard the SS Gellert to America, arriving at the port of New York on October 27, 1893. From there they went on to Wisconsin and settled near Loganville in the township of Westfield in Sauk County, where he would work as a farm laborer. After his mother was married to John George Hahn on August 17, 1894, at St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church in Loganville, Henry went to live with his sister, Carolina, and her husband, Henry Peen, in the township of Westfield, and then later in the township of West Point in Columbia County. While working at the Patterson Farm in the township of Dane in Dane County, he met Theresa Neumeier, born November 5, 1883, the daughter of Joseph Neumeier and Maria Anna Werle of Roxbury, Dane County, Wisconsin. Prior to meeting Henry, Theresa went to school at St. Norbert's Parish in Roxbury and worked in Milwaukee for a time as a servant and a housekeeper. Henry Dettman married Theresa Neumeier on February 28, 1908, at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Lodi, Wisconsin. They had 3 children, Helen, Martha, and Herbert, in Dane Township before he bought an 80-acre plot of land in the West Point Township near Lodi to farm on his own on July 2, 1912. He had 6 more children, Edna, Verna, Walter, Dolly, Joseph, and William, a total of 9 children, 5 girls and 4 boys. Recently I was given a tour of the farm by Tom and Jeannie Dettman, grandson and current owner of the Dettman farm. The old house is still there, though moved 100 feet or so from its original location, and is used for guests. Tom and Jeannie were gracious enough to give me a tour of the inside of the house.
Dettman was probably about the 4th owner of the house.
Really? So
all our kids bring our junk here. Like, they got a new big screen TV, and so they bring work. So we got to get rid of all this. But
wow.
This
was the main living room.
This was the main living room. This was your grandma and grandpa's bedroom. And this old iron bed was here, and it may, I think this might have been, I don't know whose bed it was, but it was, this bed, the neighbor lady gave it to me. Dolly had given it to her, and she brought it back to me, and I just spray painted it and brought it back up.
It's really nice.
When we have company, we use these bedrooms for, because
oh, you were showing me this down here
under
before.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of neat. What people kind of really, you know, how they, like this says coffee. This is how they patch the, like it says right on there.
What kind of it? Phil's Brothers?
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a brand I don't even know. It says, well, it says here. It says coffee. Well, maybe that was how Hills Brothers looked back then.
It could be. That's
If you can lift that back and do whatever you want.
We got enough.
And that was their stove.
And this was the stove that they had.
On one side and gas on the other.
Yep. You could burn wood.
Okay.
Hope you don't have a gas leak when you're burning the wood.
No,
That's what they heated. That's what they heated this house with in the winter.
Yeah, this stove.
But in the summer to cook, they cooked out there. Then it was too hot.
That was the girls' room, and that was the boys' room.
Okay, I thought that was the girls' room.
No, the girls got the bigger rooms.
This is the girls' room.
I think.
Okay.
So this was the girls' room.
And all four would sit. Four or five.
Well, there was
And
5 of them.
5 girls in this room?
Yeah. And one closet in the whole house, and there it's back there. Edna, Dolly, Helen, Verna, and Martha.
Yeah.
That's 5.
Well, the wallpaper I assume is more recent.
Are the furnishings a long time here too, or?
No, the furnishings are things that I dragged in. I got this at a sale because I thought it kind of looked like the old house.
Front view.
That was Doll.
Got the cramped room, dear.
Yeah.
That was Doll's table.
This was Doll and John's table.
Their table?
Was. And those red and white chairs were Doll and John's.
Well, the portrait used to have a bunch of your dad.
And this was the boys' room. How many boys in here?
5. Or, well, no, 4. There was Herb and Joe, Bill, and Walter.
Big enough for 2 sets of bunk beds, and that's about it, huh?
Well, they didn't have bunk beds. He said the bed took up most of the room. He said it came to like here. And he said they had a little dresser against the wall, but they just slid into bed and they had to sleep this way.
Wow, one big bed.
But this is all junk I had in my attic for my girls.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought it's a good place for it.
They did use that for heat.
Cute.
I'm not sure.
But when we came here, the plaster was just falling off the wall in big cracks. So I put that real thick plaster stuff on it just to hold it up.
Looks good.
Because it was...
I like the pine cone wallpaper. And then this is the original stove?
No.
No, this is the original.
This is the stove. That was in the
cooking stove. They never had a stove back then.
Okay.
No, Tom and I put that in there just
heat
to keep it warm.
That thing would roast you out of here.
This was in our basement. And, oh, what a job to carry that thing up here. It's heavier than a... You can hardly... It took 5 men to get it through that door. I thought they'd never do it.
Wow.
But they did.
Is this a reminder of behave yourself? My grandma always told me that whenever the kids got a line, she had like a belt strap or something sitting on the wall.
Really?
And all she had to do was point to it and they knew when to behave. Mm-hmm. That's what my grandma told me once. I don't know if this was the place for it or not, but I was just curious.
I have no idea. When we moved in here, it was just full of old junk that Johnny bought at auctions, and it was full of...
He was using it for storage.
He
even had
grain. They didn't...
There was grain in there.
They just there were grain and pine cones all over. We took bushels of pine cones.
My grandmother and eldest daughter of Henry and Theresa Dettman, Helen Geyer, remembered her parents this way.
Well, Henry Dettman, my dad, he was a good guy and liked to have people around, loved to play cards. You could get into a game anytime he was around. He used to play the harmonica a lot, and could he ever play the old German songs a lot better than the ones he learned here. This is Theresa Dettman, my mother. She was a good hard worker, but us kids had to help or else, which was good for us. Made us lots of Cracker Jack by the dishpan full. Yeah, that's right, lots of ice cream. We had a freezer that we had to buy the gallon freezer full of lots of other goodies. Fed us good farm food, all had our chores to do, and no one tried to get out of doing them. No fighting, we knew better. There was a strap hanging by the cupboard, which I don't think or remember she used, but it was a good reminder to all of us. She was super. How she ever did all she did, I don't know.
During my research, I've gotten to meet several of my grandmother's brothers and sisters. At the time of the making of this film, I've had the pleasure of getting to know the youngest daughter, Dolly Mitchell, and the second youngest son, Joseph Dettman, both like their parents and most of their siblings living well into their 90s. I talked with them extensively about what it was like growing up on the Dettman farm. One of the things I wanted to know was, what kind of crops did they grow?
Well, we always had hay and oats, and the oats made straw for the bedding, and corn, and we'd shred corn in the wintertime. We raised sorghum. That was before my time.
Yeah, I remember raising sorghum. You know, that's a great tall stalk. But I remember raising it. Yeah. You had to take a lather and knock the leaves off, and just the stalks got tied together.
I can remember Herbert telling about he had to take it way over here beyond Sauk City to have it sorghum made. It's like a corn. It's a stalk like a corn, and they refined it and made like thick honey. I could remember going to the cucumber patch and picking cucumbers.
Cucumbers, they had a pickle factory right in Lodi.
And they raised green beans for the factory some, and I picked green beans. And
the beans got bagged up and taken down to the canning factory where they canned them in Pointe. Potatoes, they had to be dug and cleaned off and put in a wagon box, and then Pa'd take them to town.
With hay being the main crop being used for the feeding of his cattle, I asked about what was involved in the process of dairy production.
We always had about half of the land was hay. Made a lot of hay. The cows you had to.
When we first started, we had 5 or 6, all milk cows. No, I believe there was always 8. Before, the milk house was a ways down in front of the barn.
They were always milked by hand, and a strainer and a milk can was right there in the barn.
And we put the milk in cans and cooled it in the tank. The water ran right from the pump over to the tank. And when the wind didn't work, then there was a gas engine that was set. But afterwards, then we had to put the water in the ground, and it went into the barn.
In the morning, we'd take the 2 milk cans down by in front of the house. There was a cut bank so you could back a car out and turn around. And the milkman drove in there, and the 2 cans of milk were sitting here waiting for him to pick them up. Yeah, he'd set off 2 empties and take the 2 full ones tomorrow. We only got 2 cans of milk. Well, we had 4 milk cans. Robertson's was the ones that hauled milk. They had a truck with a rack on it, and they picked up several. They had a full truckload when they went to town, but everybody's cans had their number on them.
Besides cattle for milking, I wanted to know what other kinds of livestock was kept on the Dettman farm.
Horses, we always had at least 2, and I think for a while we had a pony that we kids could ride. But I know we had pigs at first, because I can remember we had them had heat lights for them when they were little up in the old pig shed.
Well, he usually kept 2 brood sows, and they probably, I don't remember how many pigs they raised. They probably raised 5, 6 each one of them. And then he had a batch of pigs born in the spring, and in September another batch over winter. And that's what that little shanty up on the hill was.
We had it divided off so there was, you know, a pen for each pig and all the little ones in one, all the little ones in one pen. And we had the brooder house. I used to raise the chickens, little chickens. Yeah, we always had a nice brooder house, and we had a great big brooder stove. It really worked good. Kept them when they're little, and you could raise it on legs and get it up higher. And that was a job in the fall when you had to when you had to clean out the hen house and catch all the chickens and carry them in and put them in the hen house. You had to do that in the evening after half asleep. Well, we had a fence for them when they were little, yeah. Oh. Yeah, you pretty much had to. You had to watch the cats and the hawks. And you made sure you went and they were in the shed, in the brooder house at night, and closed the doors.
Well, chickens bought a lot of groceries, though. Take them to town, trade them against the grocery bill. The merchants always liked fresh eggs.
The Dettman children did not have to go very far to go to school. Right across the street from where the Dettman farm is was the one-room Gotchel school. All the Dettmans attended this school from grades 1 through 8. I asked Dolly and Joe what it was like going to school.
We went to Gotchel.
That was leased by the owner, who was Everett Gotchel. He was leased to the school as long as they conducted school there. And they had a big cement block right out here by the road for when the parents came in buggies, they could step onto this block. Seemed like everybody kind of took a turn at it, went down early in the morning and started firing the round oak to warm the building up a little bit. When I was at the 8th grade, and before that, Walt got run down early in the morning and built the fire. And that round oak stove heated the whole building.
I wouldn't have wanted to be a teacher. I don't know, that looked like a job to teach those little ones and then on up and then the bigger ones. That looked like a job to me.
First grade was Miss Bennett, and then through the 7th grade was Cecil Gore, and then 8th grade was Ruth Hine.
Well, we had a Miss Bennett, a Blanche Bennett, and we had a Alice Meyer, Bernice Martindale. That's the one I graduated from. She'd have classes come up to the front have chairs where they'd sit in a class up in front. The others would be sitting in back and doing their homework or whatever. There were some littler desks, and then they got pretty big at the end, some of them. We had to go and get our own water to the training place, or we used to go up to the Lance place. It was about the same distance both ways. We had to get a water pail or our own water. If we ran out of water, then somebody would have to go and get an extra pail. And in the wintertime, we had an old kerosene stove, and we had a wash boiler on that and kept water in it. And
I had the job in 7th and 8th grade of starting that fire at 11:30.
And Ma would a lot of times put stuff in little cans, and everybody would bring a little something and put it in there to heat it for sometimes. So I know we used to have rice pudding in ours quite often.
Yeah, sometimes the rice pudding with a little brown sugar on it. I can remember stewed tomatoes was real popular. Oh yeah, anything she put in a can was good to eat.
And seemed like the teacher always would have a little bag of something or other. I can't remember, but I can't say we were spoiled. She'd have classes, about maybe 12, 15 kids.
Oh yeah, one teacher took care of all of it, did a good job too. It was always orderly, well, it just worked out right. Well, we put in all that school, not playing around.
Living on the Dettman farm wasn't all work. Like any other children, there was plenty of time for fun and games. I asked Dolly and Joe what were some of the games and other activities they played as children.
Well, there would be that time of year, if there was snow on the ground, Then we built a snow fort. Oh yeah, we used to start way up next to these trees up here. Yeah. Come down around behind the barn and down the lane. All the way down to the highway. In fact, we could go along the highway a little ways.
Oh, we had, what do you call that? Made a big round circle to chase around each other. It was a...
Play fox and goose, lay out a big circle like a pie, and then you had to stay on the trail.
Anyhow, we chased kids around, played outside in the summertime. Yeah, I used to play with the boys out on the lawn and with trucks and build fences and stuff like that. Yeah, and we played a lot of ball, ante over the old shed, the old garage down there. I don't know, there was a special name for it, but it was a...
Ante over?
You throw the ball and they'd catch it and come around and try to catch you and stuff.
Well, once in a while at home we had a broken window.
We tried that over the house once and broke a window, and that was the end of that. Dear, oh dear. To think they put up with us kids like they did, I can't believe it. At night, we played a lot of cards. We played flinch and pit, other euchre, and no. She usually had help the young ones, the little ones. But I can't remember him playing with us too much.
Supper time was family time. Theresa Dettman would prepare a lot of the meals from her garden. I asked Dolly and Joe what food would she have for meals.
Ma did lots of work. She was working all the time.
But we had good food, but it was plain. I mean, it wasn't just stuff out of the garden. She'd can pickles and a lot of times if she'd have meat that she didn't know what to do, she'd can chicken and she canned beef, and we always had cucumbers, and she made a lot of pickles and cabbage. She made a lot of sauerkraut, all stuff like that, you know. We always had a lot of carrots in the garden and onions, and I know in the spring she'd have asparagus that more than we could use, and she'd clean it up and make it in little bundles like that, and they took it to town and sold it. And if I remember right, there used to be apple trees back in the orchard out just over the hill. And we always had, I can always remember 2 pear trees.
Oh yeah, there was 2 pear trees down in the garden.
Always had cookies. I can never remember going hungry.
Everything we ate, she had a hand in.
Everything was good.
Theresa would also garden for enjoyment, growing many different kinds of plants and flowers. While I couldn't get much specifics on what kinds of flowers, Joe identified one type of flower she grew from a photograph I had.
And Ma always used to have so many hollyhocks. They kind of reseed themselves. They did for years, and I don't think there's hardly any of them left anymore.
As it was with many families back in the day, Sunday was a time for going to church and spending time with other family members, primarily their Uncle John and Mary Wall.
A lot of times we'd go down and go to church with the neighbors, Rhinans. I can remember piling all of us in the sled and going over to Aunt Mary's in the wintertime for Sunday.
Visiting then was mostly a Sunday thing.
And then a lot of times when we kids, 2 or 3 of us would go together and we'd go first to the Wartner place and get warmed up, and then we walk across the ice. I went across Crystal Lake a good many times. She was a good cook. I just loved her scrambled eggs that she made.
She a lot of times had us for Sunday dinner too. She always had cookies when kids would come.
Aunt Mary used to make a lot of sewing for us. I can remember dresses Aunt Mary made for me. Yeah, Aunt Mary made me a really pretty, I think it was silk, navy blue dress, and it had pink long. Boy, I loved that dress. Herbert worked there. I can remember him sleeping in that one bedroom.
He worked at Johnny Wall's for 3-4 years. And then while he was gone, John sold the farm, or should say he rented the farm, but they moved to Lodi.
No, Aunt Mary's, that was a second home to us.
Every year after Christmas time, Henry would take a train at New Year's to Reedsburg to visit his mother and his brothers and sisters for a couple of days every year. He usually also took with him one of his children, as Dolly Mitchell remembers.
Well, every New Year's he always went to Reedsburg and celebrated with his family in Reedsburg a couple days, play cards. The 500 and euchre, and I went along with them one day. That's the only thing I could remember about my grandma.
The Dettman children had to grow up much faster than children today do. The house being as small as it was, and with each new member of the family being added to the mix, once each child passed the 8th grade, they had a decision to make. My grandmother Helen, along with her sisters Martha and Edna, decided to go live with their Aunt Margaret Pings in Sauk City and continued their education through high school, while Herbert went to work on the farm of his Uncle John and Aunt Mary Wall, and Walter went to work on the Patty Shook's farm. Verna, Dolly, Joseph, and Bill continued their education in the high school in Lodi while living and working with other farm families, as Dolly went to work for the Palmers and Joe went to work for Cecil Cook. Bill continued to work for his father through his high school years. Henry and Theresa would stay on their farm until 1949, when they rented it to their youngest daughter, Dolly, and her husband, John Mitchell, and later selling it to them in 1955. Henry and Theresa went to retire to Lodi, Wisconsin, where they spent the remainder of their lives, living into their early 90s. Theresa died on January 10, 1977. Henry followed a short time later on February 27, 1977. Besides 4 sons, Herbert Dettman, Walter Dettman, Joseph Dettman, and William Dettman, and 5 daughters, Helen Geyer, Martha Nelson, Edna Millis, Verna Kepp, and Mary Adeline Dolly Mitchell. They had 21 grandchildren and 25 great-grandchildren, of which I am proud to be one of them. Mm-hmm.